Hello. Hello. Yeah, I can't see anybody, but I don't know. Hi there.
Hi there.
Okay, Paul. So that second link that I sent, that's what works?
Yeah, the other one was just the ability to watch the live stream. This
Okay.
one let us get in.
All right, good. So we've got Jordy, Paul. It looks like Justin maybe is going to try to get in. Let me try sending him an email with the new link just to him.
Sorry, I need some eye drops.
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Perfect.
Bubba, are you Justin?
I am. I apologize for that.
Okay, that's all right, as long as we know who's who. Okay, I got us all together. Now what are we supposed to do?
Panic.
I've got a second screen so I can look on the class to see what we're supposed to do as a group, but so let me log back in, I guess.
I've got the agenda here. I
Oh,
think we're
that's a
supposed to
good
just follow
start.
that. And iLearn wants to kick me out. That's so lovely.
Don't get me started on 3.0.
I'm ready to, if I lived any closer to BYUI, some buildings would be catching fire right now over this thing.
Okay. Okay, let me pull it up here. Lesson 3.
Case study activity instructions. And then the agenda is all the way at the, kind of in the middle.
Where did you say the agenda was? I'm looking at the case study write-up for Mary Griffin.
Yeah, go into the lesson 3 case study activity.
Okay.
So it's a few down. The activity instructions.
Okay, I see it.
And then right below the video on like where it says this week's group leader, you'll see the link.
Okay. All right. Begin the recording. Invite someone to offer a prayer. Begin with a quick synopsis. Has anybody done their case study? I mean, it's Monday.
Not yet. I've just read it.
You've read it? Okay, you're a little ahead of me.
I've done most of the write-up. I was bored
Really
this week.
Is this time okay with everyone to meet every Monday?
Yeah, I mean, it would actually work a little better for me if it was an hour earlier, but I'm fine with this time.
Okay.
I mean, I can do the whatever time. I just need to be able to know what time exactly, so arrangements can be made accordingly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the most important part.
Okay.
Because I spent most of this last afternoon freaking out trying to find everyone.
Yeah, and I just now found the link that I found out we were in this Monday night group. It's like 3.0. You're searching for stuff that was from previous weeks and in Dropboxes or Google Docs or something like that. It's
I miss having my little thing in the top left corner that told me when stuff was due, and I could just turn that in and be happy and not be stressed because the list would disappear, and now it doesn't happen anymore.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
real
the
quick,
calendar
guys.
thing is so small you can't tell which is which.
Does anyone know about Lena Burnell? I have her on our group list.
In our group?
I sent an email to everyone on the list, but that's all I know.
Okay, and then I noticed that somebody on the list is under IMA 15001, but I don't know whose name that is.
I think that's a Mackie Imano. What I show on the list for the final group is Norman Huff, Jordy Steenstra, Justin McHugh, Paul Lopez, Miguel Ariano, and Maki Imano.
Okay, so they must have removed Leanna since last time I checked. So, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm playing
this
catch up here a little bit.
okay.
So the only person missing then is Mackie, correct?
And Miguel?
I got
No.
Miguel. Miguel's here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the reason I asked what time we wanted to meet is because whenever I signed up for the groups, I signed up for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at the same time from 7 to 9. So I wasn't sure what time everyone was okay with. And I got up an hour early just to make it today.
Who was saying they couldn't meet till 8:30 tonight?
Yes, that was me.
That was you?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, do you guys want to keep this time? Do you want to move it to 6 o'clock, or do you want to do it later? What works for everybody?
This time or later works better for me. Earlier gets tough because my wife works nights, sleeps during the days, and I've got the kids.
Okay.
So I like, later in the evenings better because I've got her awake to take care of the kids. But we'll make work whatever we need to make work for everyone.
All right. Miguel?
Uh, Anywhere from 7, 8, and 9, I'm okay with it. It just varies because I travel a lot, so I'm in different time zones all the time. And normally I'd be home by 6 with my normal time zone, but the time zone here it's different.
Okay. Sounds like we should just keep it at this time, so 6 p.m. Mountain. Okay?
7 Mountain, 6 Pacific?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I'm on Arizona time, so it's 6 o'clock for me.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Same with me half the year, since Arizona doesn't switch. Okay, so
We're
7
smart that
p.m.
way.
So 7 o'clock Rexburg time. That is Mountain Standard Time?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. It's because I'm not in the States, so I just have to make sure.
Not a problem.
All right, let's do this then while I've got the group available or the sheet up that lists our group. We're just going to muddle through this one. Jordy, I think if you've read the case, maybe you should be the group leader. Are you able to pull up the agenda?
I'm actually looking for it. Where is it? Where did you find it?
It's under lesson 3.
Uh-huh.
Case study activity.
Yeah.
And then this week's group leader.
Did you find the case study activity?
Yeah, case study activity.
Now
Are we
scroll down a
recording?
little bit to where it says this week's group leader,
This week's group leader. Yeah, I see it.
and
then
then
group discussion agenda.
yeah,
Instructions start with a prayer. Begin the record. Are we recording?
yeah, it's recording.
Okay.
Let's do this before we get started. Let's just figure out who's going to be the group leader for the next 5 weeks or however many people are in the group.
I'll be happy to take next week. That's fine.
Okay, so
That's Bubba, aka Justin.
Justin will be, today's the second, so 5/9, and then 5/16.
I can do 16.
Okay, so let's just go down the list then, the way they have it on the thing. So Paul will be 5/16. Miguel.
Keep in mind, I just can't record right now because I'm waiting for my giant box of computer parts to show up.
If you want, I'm fine with setting up the, now that I kind of know how to do it and find the invitation link, I'll set up the HOA and I'll email to everybody's BYU email the link, because that seems to work fine. So I'll set it up and record it. Everybody else just worry about their group leader. So Miguel's going to be on the 23rd. We'll put Maki down for the 30th. And then I'll do the first one in June, which is June 6th, 6/6. And then we'll just keep rotating through that. We'll probably each do it twice, something like that. So Jordy is today. Okay, I'll put that in an email with the link to the recording when we're done here.
Okay. Sounds
All
good.
right, Jordy, take it away.
Everybody ready? Shall we start with a prayer?
Sure.
Let's. Miguel, will you offer the prayer?
Yeah, I'll say it. Our dear, kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day. We thank you for the many blessings that you have blessed upon us, and we thank you for another day of life. We ask you, Father, to please let your Spirit be present so that we may be able to retain and learn this important material that we may be able to discuss over and put it to use in our personal and business settings. And we thank you for all that you do, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you, Miguel. So let's see.
You're welcome.
We need to begin with a quick synopsis of the case. So I've read it. Anybody else has read it? I think, was it Stephen or Paul that?
It was me.
Okay.
I read it already.
Just really quick, it's about a problem between departments within a business. They're making cupcakes, and so I think it's the production manager gets mad because of some detail on the labeling, and he goes from his department and finds whoever's on the production floor and kind of starts giving directions, or is mad, is upset. And so this person on the production floor gets upset and goes to the vice president to talk about the problem. So the vice president ends up calling um, the guy who went to the production floor to the office for a meeting. So that's pretty much really quick what happens. Anything else you guys can add? Any other important details?
I'm reading it over right now, so I have not much to add.
The only other real important detail is this production manager, Simon York. In this case, he's really new to this role, so that's definitely something to keep in mind as he's still learning the ropes of his position and duties.
Okay. Anyone else? So I guess the question is, what is the issue in this company? I guess here, if you're looking at the agenda, it says, the hints. Simon Yorks, he's the one who causes the problem. His behavior is inconsistent. Company culture. So is this the issue? You guys agree? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a variety of issues. I mean, still, we have a somewhat of an understanding of what the company culture is, but there's not enough in the 2 pages to really explore everything about Derby Foods. The other question, or the other issue I think that's at hand, is the level of training that they give their managers on how they interact with the employees.
I think you made a good point. I think Simon, if I remember right, was just promoted, right, to his position.
Yes.
And so I don't know, maybe he lacks the training on how to interact with other departments. I don't know.
I mean, when I read through this and I was doing a bit of the case study, I kept thinking about Jim. Have any of you read that one?
Which one?
Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to go off of that, there's a whole chapter on the right people in the bus, or getting the right people in the proverbial bus, and having those people in the right seats to get a business going to, or launching a business from just good to greatness. I noticed as I was reading through this, he was good as like an assistant brand manager, where he really helped the other managers push the ideas and get Derby Foods to a level of marketing and sales that they needed to be at, and to continue growing from there. So I think one of the issues we need to address is, is Simon York in the right seat of the bus for Derby Foods?
Okay.
I don't know if I'm making sense there, but that's what I was thinking about the entire time.
Sure, I think it's a valid question. If he's the right person for that job, if he's gonna take the company where it needs to go. According to the agenda, there's some questions we can discuss. First is, what do you believe is the culture at Derby Foods? Any thoughts?
It's kind of hard to define based on 2 pages of reading. I get the impression that Griffin, the VP, as well as many of York's team, had a common sense of teamwork and working together, where York's is more out front, more, I mean, they use the term excitement, but I could see how that would almost become pushy and offensive at some levels. So it seems like the culture is a little bit more of a let's work together, and York's is more about getting it right rather than working together. I don't know if that falls under that category.
Maybe it's because they don't have a culture, that there's just a bunch of individuals, and so the management leadership isn't there. They haven't created a culture that people can buy into, and so they're just doing whatever their individual personalities are.
That's a I like where you're going with that, and I do agree. My other question, though, is we know there's other managers with other teams, but we've only really seen into the lives of Simon York's team, and we know they're kind of afraid of him at this point because he's willing to throw them under a bus in front of everyone else if something goes haywire.
Right.
And so my thing is this like a culture of camaraderie and trust and group development amongst them, or is this more of a dog eat dog type culture?
Well, that's a very good point. That actually brings us to the next question. What do you think are the guiding principles in a company such as Derby Foods? I guess what are some guiding principles for creating a corporate culture that's appropriate?
Definition. You've got to define what it is.
Yeah, this case study would really help if they had some appendixes so we could see some of the company's cultural rules and HR guidelines, because that would really point us into what the culture that Derby Foods is trying to create is. But I think it's safe to assume, based off of Mary Griffin's reaction to knowing it wasn't the one meeting with Simon York having a bit of a meltdown in front of everyone, not being an isolated case, it tends to tell me that there is a much more relaxed type environment there, and the employees generally do like their jobs based off the atmosphere.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of get that impression that it's a nice place to work, and then they're happy, right? And I kind of get the feeling that this guy is, I think in the beginning of the case study, uses the word hot shot. He probably just got promoted and, wants to really, he's really excited, right? So that can be, when something goes wrong, he goes a little overboard, right? I guess it's something that the vice president was going to have to talk to him about it.
Looking at the case study, I think they're trying to coordinate this case with the reading, with the speed of trust. And I think that's kind of what we should look at with the case study is how do the interactions of these people either build trust or tear down trust.
Well, coming off of that, Norman, I look back at the bit in the reading regarding intent. In Simon's case, his intent is a good one. He's excited about the brand, he's excited about the product, he's excited about the goals. His intent is great, but everyone else is judging him based on his behavior, not his intent. They see him as being pushy and overbearing when, in all honesty, he can see the pitfalls that could have been realized that weren't. And so I think it comes down to judging people not based on their behavior, but based upon their intent. And it's possible. I mean, it could go both ways. Simon could be seen as an enthusiastic, energetic leader, or he could be seen as a pushy, overbearing boss for his team specifically. So I think part of what they need to do is part of their culture needs to be based upon understanding the intent of everybody's roles.
Right. So do you think Mary trusts Griffin? Does she trust Shelburne? Does she trust York?
That's a good question.
Well, it sounds like she doesn't. Oh, continue.
No, I was just gonna say I don't really think she does, and I think she at first they thought it was a good idea to put York in uh, the position that they gave him, but based on what other people are saying, to me I think it sounds more like a hostile environment where there's this one guy that's trying to impress everyone, and and the people that work under him, he's not a leader, like he's trying to be a leader with a capital L. He's trying to make everything perfect and everything to impress others. And I think that the people that are working under him don't like that. You know, they know that there's going to be little mistakes here and there to be done, but that's how you get better, you know. And he's just trying to make it seem like he does everything perfect, and he wants everyone to follow that. And it's just you can't, you know, change people from night to day. You first have to, you know,
However,
start it.
though, I think there is a trust between is it Shelbourne and Griffin, because Shelbourne looks like went straight to Griffin, you know, and said, "Hey, this is
Yeah,
what happened." There was a certain confidence between them. But
yeah.
where I think you're right is that probably with this new guy, that
Between
confidence
Griffin, between Shelbourne and York. That's what I mean.
hasn't been
Yeah.
established yet, right?
No. Nope.
Perhaps.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we also got to take into account, York's past performance. Just based off what he was able to originally do for the company, and how he managed to help push their sales and essentially their brand marketing strategies. He built a lot of trust with the company. But now the matter is, he's got some trust to reestablish based off of his ability to lead. As it's very different, and I think he's a little he feels a little pressured because he did a lot for the company, and then they gave him more responsibility, and I don't think he's entirely sure how to responsibly handle it yet.
That makes sense. That's a good point.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think the way that Mary handles it when she has her meeting with him, it is going to be really key in providing that direction going forward. Because if she comes down on him really hard, she's going to infer that she really doesn't trust him to, give a good presentation, to have the numbers right. And, he's going to probably do to his team what she does to him. So if she kind of mentors him and, is positive in building him up and, just helping him be a good leader, then I think if he takes it the right way, then he can go to his team and, be less abrasive and be the same way. So I think a lot of people are going to be affected by how she handles the meeting with him.
And I think a big thing for Griffin going forward is, they're going to need to, address, all of his strengths in the company, what he's able to present, because, he caught a mistake on the packaging, or at least he feels he did. It was the way he handled it that was very, very poor for the company morale as a whole. So if she can train him in a way to better handle things like, a technical error during a presentation and just laugh that off instead of playing the blame game, then it's going to be an overall better meeting with him.
So the question is then, what is Mary Griffin's role in establishing the culture in the company? What is her role?
I would say to integrate York. She's got to help teach York how to function within the existing culture that they've come to establish over X amount of years.
So that would be like, I don't know, like supporting him or punishing him maybe or rewarding him?
I don't even know if it necessarily needs to be punishment or support. I think it's more of instruction and education. He seems very capable. He identified problems that nobody else had caught. He obviously has been able to launch brands and improve things. He just needs to learn how the company internally communicates. In the meeting, he was taking responsibility for the error, even though it wasn't his. And then, the member of his team said, "Oh, well, that was my error, and I'll fix it." So, I mean, in one way, he's not really passing the buck to anyone. He just doesn't understand how to constructively communicate criticism or error. And I think she's got to teach him, or at least educate him in ways that the company is used to handling those types of situations and problems so that he can integrate as opposed to compete with.
Well, let me ask this question. Have you guys ever worked on or been over a department and then someone comes to your department and you know starts trying to lead your department? Is that not what's kind of happening between um, John Shelburne and Simon York?
That's exactly
'Cause,
what happened, right?
yeah,
I
because
don't
he's
I
the
don't think Shelburne's necessarily trying to run York's department. I think he's seen something that's slightly concerning compared to the rest of what he's observed in the company, and just wants to make sure Griffin is aware of the issue.
Did anybody know? I couldn't find it. What is Shelburne's position?
Production something or another.
director of production, and Simon York is the brand manager, so he really didn't have any business doing in his department. You know?
Okay, so if we're talking about culture, then the culture of a company is, let's just say the culture of this company is we put personnel where they're most effective and we trust them to do a good job. So then if that's the culture of Derby Foods, then Mary Griffin, who is, I'm assuming, everybody's boss, she
Yeah.
needs to be able to communicate to Simon that we each have a role to play, and you know, like you were mentioning, the communication is key. So I think it's really going to be on Mary to communicate to Simon that we need to help everybody in the company, and the way we help everybody is we let them do their job, and you know, let the production manager, you know, take care of the production. And you know, in coordinating meetings we can all talk about issues that we can improve, things like that, but I think she just needs to help him, you know, get to that culture of trusting each department to do their job.
I think one of the biggest things here would be training for York, as we don't know if he just jumped to this role from his previous role to this one, or if he had any training in between. And it appears he just jumped right out into the production facility when he saw the error and stopped it all, which I think is what notified Shelburne that there was an issue, since he's overproduction. I think it could actually do York quite a bit of good to, kind of job shadow the other managers in the area to see how they interact with their employees and how they're basically running the ship, as that might give them an idea of how Derby once their managers developing their team members.
Well, 'cause it does say that he says he can't just come down to the production floor and order people around. Who does he think he is? Meaning, like, you know, I think that Simon could have came up with a better approach, especially for the environment that they have going on. He could have just said, "Hey, John, I happened to walk through your department or through production, and I happened to notice a slight imperfection on one of the labels. You might want to correct that." That could have been a different way to, coming, not just going down there and start to, like, order people or tell people what to do.
But even that, the whole thing with the label probably really wasn't even
No, it wasn't the issue.
wasn't Shelburne's
I didn't think.
fault. You know, they were just packaging it or whatever. whoever designed the label was the person that York should have, been talking to, or maybe they, I don't know why, if York is the brand manager, why he didn't sign off on the labeling before it went into production.
I want to assume here that York's in charge of whoever the graphic artist is, and Shelburne's job is to just print whatever files they give him for the packaging and labels.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Okay, so here's a question for everybody. What would you recommend starting or stopping or continuing to do in each role? So for Mary, for what's the other guy's name? Shelburne, and for York. What should they start? What should they stop doing? And what should they continue to do in each of their roles?
Well, I don't think we know enough about Shelburne to really say what he should and shouldn't do so far. I mean, we know he handles production, and he saw an issue that happened over on his side of things with York, and he wanted to make sure Mary knew.
Well, did he do the right thing? Going to Griffin, was that the correct thing to do?
I would say possibly, but maybe HR should have been notified instead, but we don't know anything about an HR department here.
Well, I think all the managers report to Mary Griffin. It kind of sounds like that's the case. And so she really, if she's his direct report, then yeah, that's probably the best thing, because the other option would be he could confront York and they have a big blow up. So.
I think Shelburne did make a slight mistake, and you can see it in Mary's response to him, and that is when her first words out of her mouth are "calm down." What happened? He had already gotten fired up about something, and all we know of what happened was him already fired up. I mean, he states that York charged down and was yelling at staff, and it was ruining a long-term partnership, and blah blah blah. But that's always only one side of any given story. Had he had a bad day? Had there been other problems in his department? I think Shelburne did the right thing by going to Griffin, but I think he also needed to calm down. I think he needed to count to 10 and really sit back and say, we have a problem, let's address the problem, not basically compound the problem by adding anger and frustration.
Where does it say that she said to calm down?
It's the only quote.
The first and second paragraphs.
Yeah.
Because he just came to her and just started spewing it out, and she's like, hold on, calm down, what happened, explain the situation, what's the back, so he kind of ambushed her and just went off. And
another important part of that, it almost looks like Mary has had that problem with him before. She sighed and slightly cringed as she saw him coming up, and she could tell by the way he was walking that it could only mean one thing, that there was a problem. So maybe he's notorious for bringing problems and creating an intensity that doesn't need to be there. If she was already aware of his, just by the way he's walking, she knows what's about to happen.
Sure, so what do you recommend starting then? What do they need to do to better the situation, right? Or when things happen in the future, what can they do? What do they have to start to do? What do you recommend?
I think a few things. I think Shelburne needs to learn how to calm down and address a problem before it becomes an issue, and York needs to learn how to communicate effectively via the normal chain of commands while not impacting other departments that he has no say in anyway.
So
if he identified a problem, why was he yelling at the production staff anyway? He could go yell at Shelburne. I mean, it happens in business. You have to communicate with other managers, and it's not always a positive thing. But you don't want to have those types of meetings affecting your staff. You take a manager and you go in another room and you have a discussion to alleviate that morale problem. So I think that several things need to happen. Shelburne needs to calm down. York needs to calm down. Mary's job is to make sure they both learn how to do that.
So provide some sort of training for them, right? I guess that's what you're saying. We need to train the managers and the team members to, when there's a
Sure.
problem, this is how you go about it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think Mary needs to cultivate a better structural communication. They need to maybe have a staff meeting once a week to where all the managers from all the departments come in and they talk about issues like, production goals, and the brand people, talk about, maybe things they need to change from design standpoint. I kind of get the idea that they had a culture of everybody kind of had their own little world. The guy that was there forever and then retired, and York replaced him when he retired. That guy probably just kind of went along with everything. York got promoted, felt a little, said he was a hot shot. He's been successful, and so he feels he kind of has some pull there. So I just think maybe there's a company culture where they weren't receptive to new ideas, and York is kind of going against that company culture, but I think they need to change that company culture to accept new things.
So what do you recommend, Norman? What do they need to do? What do they need to stop doing, start doing, or continue doing?
I think Mary needs to recognize the capabilities of her managers and maybe help the production manager be more receptive to change, and help York understand that change isn't like overnight, and that they can all work together. So I think that it's maybe setting up a staff meeting once a week.
I think that staff meeting would be good because they could spend like Monday each one going, okay, this is what I'm doing for the week. These are my goals. This is what I need from each of you, and then they can trade off so they know each other's duties and how they can better interact with each other. As it seems to me when you're in this type of business with products and packaging and printing, you've all got to coordinate pretty closely to make sure everything is approved before it goes out on the shipping truck. But I could be wrong.
Okay. No, those are all good ideas. So to finish up here, to wrap it up, because we've got about 10 minutes left, what principles, if any, from this reading, from this case study, can we apply to business, right? To us, to future company, right, and the culture.
I think that as just like in the readings, we need to build trust among everyone in the company, and I think that's one of the things that Mary needs to establish. Trust between her upper management, uh, and I think that the thing that we can take from this is, if we do start our own business one day, we can take this as a learning experience, and we can ponder if we were married, what would we do in similar situations.
I mean,
Yeah,
good
the one thing
communication is a principle across the board. So if communication is the fault here, the principle is learn how to communicate properly and effectively.
Yeah, another thing I see from the reading in Speed of Trust is this company is really suffering from that trust tax, because it's really slowing things down. When he's walking the halls looking for Mary to complain about York, what's happening in his department? Is production running smoothly? Or what if something happens in the production run and he's up talking to Mary, and his people are just sitting around waiting for him to come back? I can just see a lot of instances where, I mean, this is taking up a lot of Mary's time. She has to call Mary, she has to call York in and have the meeting with him. You know, all these things are taxing the business because there's a lack of trust between managers and between management and the managers. So I think that's really applicable to this case.
All right. Are there any last comments or ideas that from this case before we finish?
I think a big thing is also, when with establishing that trust is also, knowing your employees, those working under you, knowing their strengths and their weaknesses, and developing them so that they can be able to handle the positions that you want to place them in. I mean, they obviously trusted York quite a bit with the way the brand management was going, and they trusted him enough to handle being an actual manager. But it seems like they need to be able to take some time to really develop that leadership or those leadership qualities in him so that he can be what they want.
And maybe even a step beyond that is develop those in a lot of the people who aren't in management so that when they move over, the skills are already taught and they're not, thrown in the deep end.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody want to add? Okay, before we go, there's actually a document here I'm looking at. It's a group leader sign up.
I've got that pulled up, Jordy, so I'll fill that out.
Okay, perfect.
And I'll attach that as an email. And then I see the set number 1 group 2 discussion board where we need to post the link to our meeting. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that each week, so we're good. If anybody has any other thoughts or questions, if somebody misses the meeting, then you can follow the instructor's instructions as far as reading and then kind of answering the questions and posting them to this discussion board. So go ahead and look at the discussion board later on in the week and see if Maki chimed in. If not, then we'll do this again next Monday.
Okay.
I have one more question. Are we supposed to all do a case study write-up again for this, or are we submitting a video for everyone?
I'm pretty sure you have to do a case study write-up.
Okay.
You know, it has the introduction paragraph, the 3 the problems, and then 3 solutions, and then a conclusion.
That's correct. Each week we do the case study write-up and then the Hangouts on air. So it's basically a couple of assignments that dedicated to a case study.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, this one, because we're a Monday group, so we really didn't have a lot of time to do all of that. But so now that we've kind of got this one out of the way, we've got, all the time between now and next Monday to start doing lesson 4's case study. And that's what I'm planning on doing is doing the case write-up and doing the, doing all of that, before next Monday. That way I'll be better prepared next week. And it's just that we're kind of a hard group to start because we're starting on Monday. The guys on Friday, have all week to work on it.
Well, I think knowing what we know now, we should be able to get a pretty good jump on it now that we can, read the case study prior and essentially work ahead almost.
Right.
Yeah, it'll help us actually do the case study, right? So,
Yeah.
So everybody try and read it before we meet next Monday, and so we're at 7 o'clock, right? That's what we.
Correct.
Read on?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right. Sounds good.
right.
Well, thank
See
you,
guys
everybody.
later.